Huge home game in the standings. Sabres, Panthers. Previewing it coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome in to this little Victory Monday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Both teams, Bills win in the playoffs. Of course, everyone riding high on that. And the Sabres, of course, have been having their winning ways lately as well. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on this Monday show. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we are free and available wherever you listen to your podcast. If you check out that little button right above where you listen, you might see the Everydayers Club button that you can get an ad-free version of this show if you want to sign up. You also get access to our Discord, plenty of other things. To sign up, go to lockedonsabres.supercast.com and you can sign up there. You also can watch our show on YouTube. If you do watch, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you could. Sneaky Joe DiBiase on a game day. We are talking Sabres and Panthers tonight. We're plus 11.8 on our bet of the night this year. I got a really good feeling about tonight's game against a pretty depleted Florida Panthers lineup. This is not the Florida Panthers that you are used to. They are on a little bit of a slide as of late, so we'll go through their projection for tonight and everything that we've got lineup-wise and goalie-wise on both sides of the ice. The Sabres, some interesting things on that side. And also we'll take a look around the standings and what we've been seeing around the league, who you should be rooting for tonight and going forward as that continues to evolve as time goes on. We had a really good night on the out-of-town scoreboard yesterday. That's coming up a little bit later on today's show. And a lot of good content coming throughout the week. 0506 night on Thursday. Really excited about that. We'll have some things relating to that over the next couple of days. If you're into your nostalgia, we'll throw that along your way as well. Also working potentially on getting one of the alumni on the show and working on that. So we'll see if we can pull that off for you. Timing wise, these guys are only in town for a little bit, but we'll see. And also a bunch of home games in a row. The Sabres, we'll see. I'm going to maybe every game this week. I might not be going to Saturday because, of course, I do pregame for the Buffalo Bills, and we don't know yet when the Bills playoff game is on Saturday. So good thing the Sabres play at 12:30, Kids Day, against Minnesota on Saturday. But we've got Florida tonight, Philly Wednesday, Montreal Thursday, Minnesota on Saturday before a road trip. So 4 big home games in a row, 3 of which are against teams that are right around the Sabres in the standings. So we'll get to all that coming up. But let's start today's show with Florida. We usually get to the Sabres things first, but the lineup for Buffalo is not really changing all that much. The most interesting thing for them is goalie tonight, Colten Ellis, UPL. Get to that coming up. Let's start with Florida, though, because their season has been really interesting. And at the moment, they find themselves out of a playoff spot, 3 points back of both the Capitals and the Sabres. They do have 2 games in hand on Washington. However, the Sabres have a game in hand on Florida at the moment. So by points percentage, Buffalo well above the Panthers. And they've lost 4 of 6. Injuries is the story of their season. If you have been watching the Sabres get throttled by this team over the years, you are not going to see a lot of the familiar faces that have done that throttling. You do not have Matthew Tkachuk in the lineup for the Panthers. He was at practice for Florida, but was not taking regular line rushes. He was one of the extras, which would imply that he will not play in this game. He is getting very close to a return, but it has not happened yet. He's not yet debuted or played this season. The other big injury for them, which is not something that has plagued them all year, is Brad Marchand. Brad Marchand, who is their leading point getter this year at 37 years old. He's at 46 points in 41 games. If there was any question as to whether he had anything left in the tank, he's definitely proving that the answer to that question this year has been yes. He's been great for them offensively. Sam Reinhart has been leading the way. But those two have kind of been on their own offensively in terms of consistent production. Bennett's been good. Bennett scores goals. I mean, he's not going to really give you a lot as a playmaker, but he's going to give you your 20 to 30 goals, and he's on track for that. So he's a good player too. Lindell, Anton Lindell, Baby Barkov, as sometimes he's known. He's a pretty good player, but he's not Barkov. And they're clearly missing, their two best forwards. Or you want to say two of their best three forwards. I think Reinhardt is definitely on that level as well. It's tough for them to overcome that, and they've had a tough time doing it this year. However, they've still been a pretty darn good team, despite maybe not getting all the results that they hoped. So when we look at this Florida team, as I mentioned, 4 out of their last 6 they have lost. And some of those are bad losses. Like losing to the Rangers 5-1 is a bad loss, looking at it right now. And Sergei Bobrovsky was in goal for that game. So it wasn't because of the backup. They lost to Montreal in overtime. That's not bad. And then between 2 games against Toronto and Montreal, in recent days, on Tuesday and Thursday, this past Tuesday, Thursday, they lost 10-3 combined to those 2 teams. So they get a win in there against Ottawa, and that's, a good little win, although they're not really much right now without goaltending. And they beat Colorado, which nobody does. Nobody beats Colorado. And Florida managed to do that 2-1 last Sunday. So those are their couple of wins lately, but they're not getting results. I don't know what to really make of this Panther team in their present form, because when I look at their lineup, I think, well, this is a team that had so much depth. It's one of the deepest teams I ever saw in the last 2 playoff runs go to win the Stanley Cup. And that depth is being tested. I think it shows off their depth that they could be missing their best 2 players and still be, again, I think a pretty decent team. In terms of how well they play against opponents, they really do still hit the marks. They're a top 10 team in shot attempts. They're a top 10 team in how much they are out shooting teams on the year this year at 5-on-5. They outshoot teams 934 to 878. That's 9th best in the National Hockey League. So they still are a team that I think can control play and are a threat for sure. They are not a team that goes to the bottom when they miss their best couple of players. But that's what they've built over the last couple of years. They have a system that works with Paul Maurice. Everybody has the buy-in there. That's a very tough physical team that, you can't really ever push around. You could try to outskate them right now, and that might be the best way to get them. But it's still a dangerous team for sure. The Panthers this year, looking at their lineup, Anton Lundell, as I mentioned, like big ask. He really had to jump up and be their number 1 center for the majority of this year. If you look at kind of where he's been in recent seasons to this year, he's been a 15, 16 minute a night guy. And this year he's been between 19 and 20 minutes. So big jump in ice time for him. And he's a good player. Like I think he's a good 2-way center. He's putting up decent points this year. He's got 32 points in 44 games. So name to know, Anton Lundell, he's going to be your number 1 center on the opponent's side for tonight's game. But really, it's just, I think, a slightly above average hockey team. And as beatable as they have ever been. And really the thing I want to get to mostly about Florida and where you can really get them right now is goaltending. Sergei Bobrovsky, I mean, he is 37 years old, so you never know when that cliff is going to arrive for a guy, and it's usually around this age for goalies, and we might be seeing it right now with Bobrovsky. In 31 starts this year, he has an .881 save percentage. That is far below Daniil Tarasov, their backup, who has played 13 games, 13 starts, and he has a .904 save percentage on the year. If you look at some of the other goalie numbers on the year, goals saved above expected, which we often will point to kind of look at, the overall, what he's supposed to be doing this year. And you look at Bobrovsky, he ranks 67th out of 82 qualifying goalies. All right, really, actually, that's all goalies that have played this year, 67th out of 82. But most of the guys below him have played, a good amount of games. Actually, if you want to filter it by guys that have played 10 or more, I guess you would put 4 guys out of that range. So it'd be 67th out of 78. Either way, it's not been a good season for him. He is the starting goalie for tonight's game. So not getting a good year from Bobrovsky, and that's been a big, big reason why. I mean, they're out shooting teams this year, but they've been outscored at 5-on-5. So that's a weakness that hasn't often been a weakness for the Florida Panthers. The other areas that they are really missing, Matthew Tkachuk and Barkov, power play. Those two, I mean, Barkov especially, he is the facilitator on that unit. And Tkachuk, either in the high slot or usually in front of the net, is going to be your cleanup man. And to be missing both of them, it's really harmed the power play. They are at 18.1% this year, which 18.2. That is 1 decimal point above the Sabres. Florida, 21st in the league this year on the man advantage, 18.2. Buffalo is 22nd, 18.1. And we know the Sabres power play is not a strong unit. We've been watching it all year long. And Florida's been a good power play team in recent years. So this is a big, big drop for them that is really, a problem. Now, penalty kill, they're still good because they do have a lot of good, responsible players. Like, I think when they really need to buckle down and shut you down, they have the guys for that. When you look through their lineup, I mean, their third line is kind of been elevated to their first line. Anton Lundell, Eetu Lutsarainen, and Sam Reinhart. Reinhart sticking in the top. Lundell and Lutsarainen, like, those guys have been shut down players in playoff series and in regular seasons before. Sam Bennett's your second line center. He doesn't provide as much defensively as you might think, despite being a physical player. Rodriguez centering that third line with just a couple of guys. Like, the lineup gets really thin in the bottom 6 for sure. So when I get to my bet a little bit later on, we'll talk about the line matchups, because I think if you can get whatever one of the top 3 lines for the Buffalo Sabres, whether it's the Tage line, the Norris line, or the McLeod line, whichever one of those lines gets matched up with the third line of Evan Rodriguez, Mackie Samoskevich, and Sandis Villamanis, that line could dominate tonight. Really believe that. So we'll get to that a little bit later on, but I like this matchup a lot. This Florida team is struggling, and I think they are very gettable, and this is the time to get them. Because, again, no Marchand tonight and no Matthew Tkachuk. And those two are about to be back in the lineup. They're practicing, but not in like regular lines. So to get them right before those two return, I think is pretty critical. We'll get to what's going on with the Sabres, and then also my bet of the night, and we'll look around the East coming up here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Factor. New year, big goals, and somehow even less time to cook. If you're trying to eat better, but you don't want to spend hours grocery shopping or meal prepping, Factor makes it easy. These are fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs, so you can eat well without all that work. Factor meals are made with quality, functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, healthy fats, no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and no refined seed oils. Just real food, fits your goals, whether that's eating healthier, managing calories, or getting more protein. The meals are always fresh, never frozen. They're ready in about 2 minutes. No prep, no stress. Factor also has new Muscle Pro meals. They're perfect when you want something higher in protein to support strength and recovery. It honestly makes sticking to your goals so much easier because the food is already done for you. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50off and use the code LockedOnNHL50off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year, which is huge. So again, factormeals.com/ ready for it? LockedOnNHL50off, 50 off. So LOCKEDONNHL 50OFF. Make healthy eating easier with Factor. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, Sabres and Panthers. Sabres are favored in this game, which you will never see against the Florida Panthers, or at least you will rarely see. We will get to who I got as my bet of the night tonight. I'm feeling good about the goal scoring prop, so I'm going to go back into that category. But for the Sabres, all you really need to know tonight is that Colten Ellis is going to be back between the pipes. So he starts against New York, played really well. Luukkonen against Anaheim, and Luukkonen gave up 3 in the third period again, but they had the lead, and they also kind of left them out to dry on a couple of those. So, by the way, I listened back to my show, which, by the way, I don't really ever do. I said someone asked that, like, do you always listen back to your shows? Like, I'll listen back just a little bit just to make sure like everything got uploaded all right or like was edited okay, but I don't really listen to myself very often at all. For some reason, I did after the Anaheim game, and maybe I was, it was late at night after I'd been to the game. Just wanted to make sure everything sounded good. And I realized, again, it was late. So, give me a pass on this if you would. I didn't mention Luukkonen's name one time. in the entire show. Bad job by me. And if you were listening to that, I probably deserve this. You're thinking, wow, Joe, who hates UPL, just completely omitted his entire game, didn't even mention him on a 30-minute show. I probably deserve that because I thought Luukkonen was awesome in the Anaheim game. Kind of similar, though, to the last 3 games. Like, we're really trying to figure out, did the goalie have a good game? He lets in that soft one against Vancouver, and it was 3 in the third. He lets 3 in the third against Anaheim. Ellis allowed that super soft one against the Rangers, but really in large part, first 2 periods especially, I've loved both goaltenders in each of the last 3 games. I thought Luukkonen was fantastic. He was dialed in, I thought, in this Anaheim game. So again, like, I don't love the 3 goals in the third, and maybe you want him to make a save or 2 on a couple of those. One of those goes off Dahlin's stick. Like, what's he supposed to do? But anyways, like, I thought Luukkonen was really, really strong in that game, and his stretch as in the last 2-3 weeks has been awesome. But he is not playing tonight. He is not playing. They're going with a rotation here. I think that's fair. Colten Ellis earned another game with his performance in recent days, of course, against the Rangers. So he gets one at home against the Panthers, and everything else is the same. Lineup-wise, still got Krebs on that Tage Thompson line for the time being. Maybe that'll hold forever. We'll see. And everything else is the same. Kind of amazing. The Sabres are favored in a game against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions with Colten Ellis between the pipes. But a lot of context. Sabres have been great lately. Florida has not. And Ellis has been pretty good. And obviously, Florida's got a lot of injuries. So when we look at tonight's spread and kind of what the expectation should be set at for tonight's game, factoring in all the injuries, the goalies, whatever, Sabres are a -120 favorite. So very slight favorite. Florida, you'd have to bet even money, +100 if you wanted to bet on them at FanDuel Sportsbook. Over-under is 6.5 for this game. I like anytime goal scorer bets as of late. And maybe that's only because I'm hitting on them. We got it with the Josh Doan goal in the New York game. I'm going to, again, look at the line matchups. If I had to guess at how this is going to work, you got a really weak bottom 6 for Florida. And the Sabres have a 4-line team. We know who their 4th line is. Their top 3 are a little bit more interchangeable game to game. The Norris line might lead the team in ice time. The McLeod line might, and the Tage line might. So you kind of have a top 3 line combination at the moment. So what I'm trying to figure out is you get last change. Who matches up with the Anton Lundell line? Who matches up with the Sam Bennett line? And who matches up with the Evan Rodriguez line? I don't want to go for a goal scorer on this bet with who I think goes up against Lundell. And if I had to guess at how Lindy's going to play it, that line, easily the most threatening. Like Lundell, Lutzerain, and Reinhart. That's a good line. And then every line after that has a guy on it, like AJ Greer is on line 2, and I'm thinking, that's not that intimidating offensively. So who do you want to shut down? Because that's your McLeod-Benson line, I think. I think you match the McLeod lineup with Anton Lundell. That's what I would do. So we'll see. And that's a guess. I would then guess you go Tage line against Sam Bennett. Bennett is exposable defensively, and that line also will play a lot of minutes, and you want to make sure the Tage line is probably in your top 2 for minutes because you want him on the ice. My guess would be you'll see Evan Rodriguez's line go up against Josh Norris's line. So I want somebody from the Norris line. And for me, even if I'm wrong on that, I like taking Jason Zucker as an anytime goal scorer for tonight's game. I've liked his game a lot since he's returned from injury. He is knocking on the door. He did get that one power play goal, but he's coming really close with some opportunities at 5-on-5. He should have 2 or 3 goals at 5-on-5 in the last 3 games since he's returned. So we'll see. He also is the only guy that scores for them on the man advantage, so you also get a good chance there. But I've liked him on that line with Norris and with Tuck, and I think those guys are due to get a couple of goals at even strength, which they've been, again, getting close, but not quite getting there. And I'm actually not going to go goal. I'm going to go a little bit. No, yeah, I'm going goal. +250. +250. Jason Zucker. I was almost going to pivot and go to just a point, get 1 point. But let's get the odds. +250, anytime goal scorer for Jason Zucker. If you are wondering at where we're at on the season, we're +11.8 units. So if you had started with $10, you'd be at 118. If you had started with 100, you'd be at 1,108. 1180 actually. If I think I have that right. But anyways, it's been going well. It's been going well. We really stacked it up at the beginning of the year, and we've been just above average since then. So let's keep it rolling tonight. When we come back, what happened in the Eastern Conference while we were away on Sunday? You got some good news, and also what we should be looking for tonight. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Quo. So, new year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses, and we think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo. Smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with your customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees that full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, works right from your phone or computer, and you can even keep your existing number. And Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this year the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNHL. That's Quo, QUO.com/LockedOnNHL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, one last thing to look at here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, and that is what's going on the out-of-town scoreboard. And we had a very good night on Sunday. You probably were watching the Bills game. You probably were watching some playoff football, and then we'll go through what we're expecting on Monday night, what you want to root for. But looking back to Sunday for a moment, everything pretty much went well. Winnipeg beats New Jersey in regulation. The Devils are imploding. They've won only 2 of their last 7. They've lost 4 in a row. And right now they sit 6 points back of both Washington and Buffalo for a playoff spot. So they're falling down. And man, they're like healthy enough. I don't really get why that's happening, other than Jacob Markstrom has just had a ridiculously bad season. And I know that's a big chunk of it, but I would think they're a good enough team to overcome that. They do have Jake Allen there as a plan B to kind of throw in and goal. So really weird to me that the Devils are this bad. They're dead last in the Eastern Conference in goal differential. So they lose in Winnipeg 4-3. Nashville beats Washington in regulation. Love it. Capitals right now tied with Buffalo in points, but they've played 3 more games. They've not been playing well as of late either. You had an East versus East game, which mostly I think you just want to not go to overtime. You got that. Boston shuts out Pittsburgh 1-0 after they scored 10 the previous game against New York. They scored 1-1. And the Bruins have won 3 in a row, and they're right in the mix. They are tied for the last spot with Washington, 52 points. Sabres also have 52 points, but Boston's played 3 more games. I also don't think Boston is staying power. They've been in this little bit of roller coaster this year, and maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. I still don't like the roster. I still don't think they're going to hang with all these guys down the stretch. And the one other game that happened in the East, Columbus beat Utah in overtime, but Columbus is 7 points back. Like, I'm not really worried about them at this point. So Monday night, what do you want on Monday night? The Sabres and Panthers will be playing, and there'll be a bunch of other games at the same time. Some of them are going to be easy. You want Carolina to beat Detroit. That's at 7 o'clock in Detroit. The Hurricanes are going to win the Metro. Don't worry about them. Beat the Red Wings. The Red Wings, who, by the way, are back up to first place in the Atlantic Division, 58 points in 46 games. The Sabres are 6 points back of that with 3 games in hand. Moving on to the next game, Seattle at New York, the Rangers. I think the Rangers are really about to implode. And when not implode, tear it down. I think trades are coming for that New York team. And we talked about Artemi Panarin last week. If you missed that episode, be sure to check it out. Maybe we get some big moves soon for the Rangers, especially if they keep losing. So the Kraken could really put their season in a spiral or continue that. Tampa versus Philadelphia. Just don't go to regulation. I think you root for Tampa. They're going to win one of those top 3 Atlantic spots. So I would go Tampa over Philly. Vancouver, you want to beat Montreal. Big game at 7:30. It's tough to really rely on the Canucks. They're not a good team. We've been doing the song and dance with them in Calgary recently, playing teams in the East, and you don't often get the result you want. So we'll see. Maybe we get lucky. And Vancouver is able to pull one off against Montreal. Minnesota against New Jersey. Go Minnesota. And the last one, Toronto. Start keeping an eye on the Leafs. And we got to start rooting against them. That's easy, right? Like, I don't like Toronto. Toronto hasn't played as many games. Some of these other teams, they have played one more game than Buffalo, and they're at 51 points. So 1 point back of the Sabres. The Sabres only have one game in hand on the Leafs, and they've been playing really well. Matthews has ignited as of late. They're starting to get some saves, and I think the Leafs are a team we have to start really paying close attention to. The good news is they play the best team in the NHL tonight at Colorado. And as much as Toronto's been playing better, I can't imagine Colorado losing to Toronto. Colorado, knock on wood, I'm right. I don't want to jinx it, but Colorado's home record this year is 19-0-2. There are so many insane stats about the Avalanche this season and how much better they are than the rest of the league. What's like the best way to put it is, the home record I just mentioned, only 4 regulation losses in 44 games. How about goal differential? We'll go with that today. Colorado is plus 80 in goal differential this season. The second best team in the NHL, Tampa, is plus 39. They are more than twice as good as second in goal differential. It's insane. So anything could happen. It's the NHL. Florida beat Colorado the other night with all their injuries. So anything could happen, but Colorado is a minus 250 favorite against the Toronto Maple Leafs in this game. So massive, massive favorite. I would expect them to win, and hopefully we get that. All right, let's hope it's a good night for the Sabres in the out-of-town standings. They're going for 14-15 with this game tonight. Stay tuned after the game tomorrow afternoon. Check in. We'll be recapping it. I'm going to this game tonight. By the way, the one other news item, I didn't really talk a lot about it today because I want to wait to make sure we get the right announcement. But Gary Bettman is in town. He's having a press conference before tonight's game with Terry Pegula and Pete Gwelly, Sabres president. And that is expected to be about the 2026 NHL draft. The only thing I'm wondering is, would they come all the way here for a press conference just to announce the draft? I'm wondering if there might be a announcement about an outdoor hockey game at the new Bill Stadium in a couple of years attached to that announcement. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. I want to wait to find out if that ends up happening before we talk really in depth about it. But the reporting is that the Sabres are going to get the draft in 2026. Enjoy Sabres Panthers. We'll talk to you after it's over. Get into our Locked On Sabres Everydayer Club. Go to lockedonsabres.supercast.com. Get into our Discord and also ad-free versions of this show. Talk to you tomorrow here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now your number one sports podcast network.